I never thought of myself as someone who could be in front of a camera. I was always the guy behind the scenes, the one organizing events, making sure everyone else looked good, staying comfortable in the background. But there was something about Marcus that made me want to step into the light. I met him at a gallery opening downtown, one of those pretentious art shows where everyone's holding wine glasses and pretending to understand abstract expressionism. I was only there because my friend Sarah was exhibiting, and she'd guilt-tripped me into coming. I was standing in front of this massive canvas, honestly trying to figure out if it was hung upside down, when I heard this laugh behind me. "It's supposed to be a commentary on urban isolation," he said. And when I turned around, he was smiling at me with these warm brown eyes that seemed to know I was completely out of my depth. But between you and me, I think the artist might have just spilled paint and ran with it. Marcus was holding an actual camera, not a phone, which already made him interesting. He had this casual confidence, dressed in a simple black Henley jeans, dark hair slightly messy like he'd been running his hands through it. He introduced himself as a photographer, mostly portraits, and we ended up talking for the next hour. Not about art, really, but about everything else. He told me about growing up in Seattle, about how he'd dropped out of business school to chase photography, about the coffee shop where he edited his work. I told him about my marketing job that paid well but left me feeling empty, about the novel I'd been pretending to write for 3 years, about how I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something just because it scared me. "You have an interesting face," he said suddenly, studying me in a way that made my chest tight. "Very expressive. The way your eyes change when you talk about things you care about versus things you think you should care about. That's rare." I laughed it off, uncomfortable with the attention. "I'm definitely not model material." "That's exactly why you'd be perfect," he said. "I'm working on a series about authentic masculinity, not the magazine version, the real thing. Vulnerability, uncertainty, all the stuff guys are told to hide. I think you'd be incredible for it." I should have said no. I should have made some excuse about being busy or camera shy or literally anything else. But there was something in the way he looked at me, like he saw past all the armor I wore every day, and I heard myself saying yes before I could think better of it. The first session was 2 weeks later at his studio, which was really just a converted loft in an old industrial building. Exposed brick walls, massive windows letting in natural light, photographs pinned everywhere in various stages of completion. It smelled like coffee and developer solution, and there was a worn leather couch in the corner covered in photography books. I was nervous as hell. I'd changed my shirt 3 times that morning, finally settling on a plain gray t-shirt that I immediately worried was too boring. Marcus greeted me with that same easy smile, offered me water, and seemed completely oblivious to the fact that my palms were sweating. "Just be yourself," he said, adjusting his camera settings. "I'm not looking for poses or performance. I want to capture who you actually are." Who I actually was turned out to be terrified. The first hour was awkward. I didn't know what to do with my hands. I felt hyper-aware of every muscle in my face, trying to arrange my expression into something that looked natural, which of course made everything worse. Marcus was patient, talking to me between shots, asking me questions about my childhood, my fears, what I wanted out of life. Slowly, I forgot about the camera. "Tell me about the last time you cried," he said, and the question caught me so off guard that I answered honestly. "My dad's funeral, 3 years ago. I gave the eulogy and held it together the whole time, because that's what everyone expected, and then I got home and just broke." The shutter clicked. Once, twice. I realized I'd stopped performing. Did it feel good to finally let it out? Honestly, it felt terrifying, like if I started, I might never stop. Click, click. "But you did stop." "Yeah, I did." He lowered the camera and looked at me, really looked at me, and something passed between us that I couldn't name. "That's what I want to capture," he said quietly. "That strength in admitting you're not always strong." We fell into a rhythm after that. Sessions every couple of weeks, usually on Saturday afternoons. Sometimes he'd have specific concepts in mind, moody lighting or particular settings. Other times he'd just talk to me, camera ready, waiting for moments of unguarded honesty. I started looking forward to those afternoons more than I wanted to admit. Started thinking about things I wanted to tell him, questions I wanted to ask. It was the fifth session when things shifted. We'd been shooting for about an hour, and I was exhausted in that good way, emotionally wrung out but lighter somehow. Marcus set his camera down on the table, which he never did during a session. "Want to take a break?" he asked. "I made coffee earlier. It's probably still warm." We sat on that worn leather couch, close enough that our knees almost touched, drinking coffee that was indeed barely warm. He showed me some of the shots from earlier sessions, and I barely recognized myself. There I was, looking vulnerable and strong at the same time, present in a way I never saw in mirrors. "Is this really how you see me?" I asked. "It's how you are," he said. "You just don't let yourself be seen this way very often." I didn't know what to say to that. The afternoon light was coming through the windows at that perfect golden angle, and I could see dust motes floating in the air between us. Marcus had a small scar above his left eyebrow that I'd never noticed before. "Can I tell you something?" he said, and there was a hesitation in his voice I'd never heard before. "These sessions, they're not just about the project anymore, haven't been for a while." My heart was doing something complicated in my chest. "No? I look forward to Saturdays all week. I think about what we'll talk about, what I might discover about you. I've taken thousands of photos of you at this point, and I still want to keep looking." The vulnerability in his admission made me brave. "The camera's not on right now." "I know. So this is just us?" "Yeah, just us." I kissed him. Or maybe he kissed me. Honestly, I'm still not sure who moved first. Just that suddenly we were kissing, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. His hand came up to cup my jaw, gentle and sure, and I felt something in me that had been held tight for years finally relax. When we pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. Marcus laughed, this soft, surprised sound. "I've wanted to do that since the gallery," he admitted. "Why didn't you?" "Because I wanted you to want it too. Needed you to choose it." We didn't do much shooting after that. We talked instead, sitting close on the couch, my hand in his, about all the things we'd been dancing around for weeks. He told me about his last relationship, how it had ended when his ex couldn't handle the uncertainty of his career. I told him about never quite letting myself acknowledge what I wanted, always choosing the safe path, the expected thing. "What do you want now?" he asked. "This. You. Something real, even if it's scary." "It's definitely scary," he said, but he was smiling. We started dating, though it felt like we'd been building toward it from that first conversation at the gallery. The photography project continued, but it changed. Now, when he photographed me, there was an intimacy to it that went beyond art. He was documenting someone he cared about, and I was letting myself be seen by someone who mattered. There were still sessions where the camera stayed on the whole time, where we were artist and subject. But increasingly, there were afternoons where he'd set it down and we'd just be together. He'd tell me about the light, how it was perfect for shooting, and then we'd ignore it completely in favor of talking or kissing or just existing in the same space. 3 months in, he showed me the series. He'd printed the best shots, arranged them in sequence in his portfolio. There I was, dozens of versions of myself, a story told in black and white and shadow. The progression was visible if you knew to look for it. Early images where I was performing at being vulnerable, trying to give him what I thought he wanted. Middle images where I'd forgotten to guard myself. And then the later ones, after we'd started dating, where you could see something else entirely. Not just vulnerability, but joy, trust, love, maybe, though neither of us had said it yet. "This is beautiful," I said, because it was. "You're beautiful," he corrected. I just pointed the camera in the right direction. I looked at him, at this man who had somehow seen past every defense I'd built, who had asked me to step into the light and then made it safe to do so. "I love you," I said, and watched his face transform. "Yeah," he said, like he couldn't quite believe it. "Yeah." He kissed me then, deep and slow, and I felt it again, that sense of coming home to myself. The camera sat forgotten on the table. Some moments, I was learning, were meant to be lived rather than captured. Later, much later, Marcus would include that series in a show. It would be well received, people praising his ability to capture authentic masculine emotion. Critics would write about the vulnerability in the images, the way they challenged conventional portrayals of men. But for me, looking at those photographs, I saw something else entirely. I saw the story of how I learned to be seen, how I met someone who looked at me with curiosity and patience and desire, and how that changed everything. We still do sessions sometimes, Marcus and me. They're different now, more playful, more intimate. He knows all my tells, the way I bite my lip when I'm nervous, how my shoulders relax when I feel safe. And I know his, the way he tilts his head when he's found the perfect angle, the soft exhale before he clicks the shutter. But my favorite moments are still the ones when the camera's not on, when it's just us in his studio, afternoon light streaming through the windows, talking about everything and nothing. When he looks at me not as a photographer studying his subject, but as someone who loves me, who chose me, who sees all of me and stays. I'm writing again, actually writing, not just pretending. Marcus reads my drafts and offers honest feedback, and I photograph him sometimes with my phone, trying to capture the way he looks when he's lost in editing, the concentration on his face. We're documenting each other's lives now, building a shared story. Last week he asked me to move in with him. We were in the studio, ostensibly working, but really just being together. The question came out of nowhere, or maybe it had been building for months, just like everything else between us. "I want to wake up with you," he said simply. "I want this to be our space, not just mine." I thought about my apartment, neat and impersonal, a place I'd never really made home. I thought about this loft with its brick walls and good light, the smell of coffee and chemistry, photographs of me pinned to the walls. I thought about Marcus, who had asked me to model and then taught me how to be myself. "Yes," I said, and his smile was bright enough to photograph. "So I'm moving in next month, packing up my carefully curated life and bringing it here, to this space where I learned to be vulnerable, to be seen, to be loved. I'm terrified, of course. It's a risk, choosing happiness over safety, choosing someone who sees all of you. But Marcus taught me something important in that studio. The most powerful images, the truest moments, come when you stop performing and start being present, when you let yourself be captured fully and completely by someone who knows how to look. The camera's not always on, but we're always choosing each other. And that, I've learned, is the real art. Not the perfect shot, but the messy, beautiful, terrifying work of letting someone see you and trusting them with what they find, of stepping into the light and discovering you're strong enough to stay there. I never thought of myself as someone who could be in front of a camera, but Marcus didn't just photograph me. He taught me how to see myself through eyes of love, and that changed everything.